Welcome back to another episode of the Whistleblown Podcast. I am your host, Christian Cruz, joined by my co host, Douglas Allen, here to talk about the Patriots' victory over the New York Jets 27 to 14. Um, I think there's a lot to talk about in this game, and I think we are going to have quite a bit of fun in this episode. Um, Before we get into this, if you have not already, definitely hit that subscribe button, leave a like below, leave a comment as well. You can find us on all social media platforms under the Whistleblown Podcast. Doug, my friend, how are you doing? And what did you think of this game today?
I'm good. I'm good. I will say I felt like by half I was kind of like I'm already over this game. I just felt like it's less of like the game versus like kind of the string of like bad primetime games that we've had that it just got like rough to watch. But a lot of that I would guess I would just start it off with like watching this Jets team because it's so clear and obvious that like they go down the field. You get a 14 yard or 14 play drive, and they move down the field. And then the Patriots answer, and the Patriots rightfully make adjustments, and you could just see this offense is very like run heavy, and so they got to a point where they started slowing down the run and was like, okay, Fields, you're going to beat us, and then you just see Fields on display. And I have tried, to be one of those people that advocate for Fields, but it's just so clear and obvious that he cannot consistently throw the football accurately. And I mean, there were like his receivers definitely let him down some plays with some big drops. But too many times you seen, like there was a poll at halftime trying to figure out who was the reason for that play. Was it AD Mitchell or it was Fields? And I was like, that was clear and obvious. Justin Fields. That was him throwing a
Right.
back shoulder when he should have hit him right in the hands. And it was just one of those things of watching this game. By the first half, I was like, they're not going to be able to win this shootout if they're not running the offense, which they did a very good job at the first drive of letting Fields do what he does best, which is run the ball and let Brees run the ball. But if you're only going to run the ball, eventually they're going to adjust and say, okay, well, you have to throw the ball. And the fact that they were like, oh, congratulations on Fields for hitting 100 yards, something he hasn't hit in several games. That's not good. That's not a recipe for success. And it was very intimate after, especially after halftime came, that the Patriots are going to make an adjustment and they were going to say, "Okay, Fields, you beat us," and they were able to hang around. But it was something that you just kept seeing time and time again that Fields cannot consistently and accurately throw the football to his receivers. It was just a lot of like plays where he was not hitting them, or which was really rough for him when he did, AD would drop him. And so that's got to be very strugglesome, and it led into some unfortunate, things happening for that offense. Them getting behind the sticks, some frustration penalties. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like this Jets offense or team rather, it's just very hard to watch.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Doug. I mean, it's a very hard team to watch, and it's not just this week alone. This has been all season, and I'm similar to you. I have done my best, Doug, to defend Justin Fields. I have done my best to, really try to stay on the Justin Fields train, and I've been off of the train at this point, but it's just so hard to defend the level of play that we're seeing from Justin Fields. And like you said, right, the fact that you have commentators or people in the media, trying to highlight that a quarterback in the NFL in the year 2025 threw for over 100 yards. I mean, that's pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. And I thought there was a lot of throws out there that Justin Fields missed. And that's nothing new. He's dealt with that all year. But when you are 15 to 26 with one touchdown, I believe it was 116 yards on the ground, paired with a little over 50 yards, I believe either 50 or 60 yards on the ground as well. I mean, I don't understand what Aaron Glenn is expecting out of Justin Fields at this point. I feel like you are what
Mhm.
you are. And granted, I understand that they didn't have Garrett Wilson in this game. He's on IR, but at the same time, it's not like the Jets have scrubs out there or players that aren't competent. You do have John Mechie.
Mhm.
You do have A.D. Mitchell, like you said. You have Mason Taylor as well. And for your leading receiver to have over 40 yards, I mean, it's to me just there's no words that I can really muster up to explain like just how disappointing it is. And if you are a Jets fan watching this, it's I mean, I feel for you guys. I really do because I'm sure there were a lot of Jets fans just thrilled to, see how Justin Fields was going to look in this offense after dealing with Aaron Rodgers for the last 2 years and that not really living up to expectations. And now this team, I mean, they're lucky to score 20 points. I'm gonna be honest with you, Doug. I was shocked that they even scored 14 because we're talking about the offense here, rightfully so. But that defense for the Jets was just as bad. I mean, Drake Maye had no problem
Yeah.
going down the field. Travion Henderson, who I'm sure we'll talk about a little later, he had himself one hell of a game with 3 touchdowns. But this is just not a good team by the Jets at all. And, I feel like this was more of a negative for the Jets than a positive for New England. I don't think anyone in their right mind had the Jets coming out with an upset win. So, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I'll start a little bit more with the offense before I pivot and join in with the
for
defense.
sure.
Um, I also thought it was not a great like play call like game, or it was a good offensive play calling. I felt like there was they did a very good, obviously they had a script for that first drive, and they did a lot of option plays for Fields to do what he can do with the run game. Him and Brees, and at one point they're in the red zone and they had only passed the ball once, and that worked. And then when they go for their second drive and you see it start failing, they didn't scheme up Fields to do what he did best. And I guess it's a testament to what they don't have, because you don't have Garrett, so you don't have a true wide receiver to fear to go down the field so that Justin Fields can try to scramble and get some more yards. And I won't put all of that on him. I will, or on the offensive play calling, I will put some of that on him, because even the commentators pointed it out, is when he took that sack at the end, you see it like 1, 2, 3, no one's there, take off.
Mhm.
And he didn't. He held on to the ball a little too long and he didn't go. You would like to see him do like more of that if you're going to roll with him forward. But also, you would like to see them do something where you could at least get the field open in the middle so that he can make a play and he only has a linebacker to beat. Something that he can get and scramble. But basically, you're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to run options the whole game. And if it's not Brees, it's you that's running. And it was so, like I said before, it was just very clear that they don't have a passing game. And when you don't have that, New England was just like, okay, well, then we're going to make you beat us down the field. And he had some good throws, but it was very dink and dunk down the field. A lot of 14, 13 plays drives, and you can't consistently do that every drive. It's a very long, it's very grueling. Your offensive linemen are going to get tired, they're going to get exhausted. And I just felt like that sort of game plan is not something that you can keep up. And it's definitely going to be something I'm going to be interested to see. Are they going to pivot? To go with someone else? Are they going to keep Justin Fields in there? And on the defensive side, I just feel like it was a very sloppy game. Too many penalties. They're already shorthanded. They lost. Was it Stiggers? Um, he came out, and you're already shorthanded in the secondary, and they had multiple holding penalties. And for a defense that is already just saw some of their big players get shipped off, you need to play a brand of football that's not so flag heavy. And I just, you just seen them holding too many times, get too many flags, give the Patriots some free yards. And then even when they were rushing the ball, you just seen Drake Maye just move up in the pocket, get around them. And even if they had a chance to wrap them up, they weren't doing it. They're running into each other. You just see it just looked like such sloppy, undisciplined football on the defensive side, but you could even say it for the offense. I mean, they're running that 4 minute drill, and you see Aaron Glenn on the sideline telling them, hurry up. And you see no hurry up. Like they just, on both sides of the ball, they just seem so like dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And we're this far in the season, they should have some kind of know of all to just, all right, we need to keep going, we need to go here, and there was just none of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know, uh, just speaking of the defense, I mean, not only was it sloppy, but Doug, they couldn't stop a nosebleed if they tried. I mean, to have only one sack in this game, and granted, I understand that Drake May is a slippery quarterback. I think that he manipulates the pocket very well. I think he has a very good feel for the pocket, and he plays fairly, I think, above average in terms of when pressure is in his face. But for me, it's like I, granted, you don't have Quentin Williams anymore. You shipped out Sauce Gardner, but this was a game that I thought defensively, you know, again, I wasn't expecting a win, but I thought defensively we would at least see a better performance. And it didn't matter whether they played man, they were getting beat. It didn't matter if they played zone. Drake May is finding the soft spot in their zones and just carving up this secondary. And they have a young secondary, but Drake May, I mean, he could have had two interceptions in this game. They dropped one that hit, I believe it was their safety in the hands on a first down play.
Yeah.
And it's inexcusable. And to your point, and I did notice that with Aaron Glenn, he's telling these guys, hurry up. And there's no sense of urgency. It seems like a lot of guys are playing disinterested, which I get it, right? When you have the record that you have with the Jets, and you pair that with when you have the quarterback play that the Jets have had, and you know that, hey, we really don't have a shot winning these games with Justin Fields at quarterback. I can somewhat get it, but at the end of the day, you play the game to win. And again, I thought it was just a very frustrating performance by this defense because you know that offensively they're going to have their limitations and they're going to have their struggles. Again, this isn't just a one-off thing. This has been a consistent thing outside of that Cleveland Browns game. This has been a consistent theme with this New York Jets team. And for the defense to go out there and lay the egg that they did, I mean, it's inexcusable because even in the run game, I mean, it was just atrocious in my honest opinion. Trevion Henderson had himself a game against this defense, and they are in a rebuild. They are going to have more than enough draft capital to fix the positions of need that they have. But for right now, it's like it's hard to watch these games if you're a New York Jets fan. And I left this game, Doug, and I said, man, it feels like every time this Jets team is on TV, they set football back 60 years. Like it's insane to me, just the level of play that we've seen from this team. Um, but I wanted to touch on the Patriots really quick here, Doug, because I thought Drake May. I thought he had a pretty good performance in this game. Actually, I thought he had a very good performance in this game, given the circumstances. Right? This isn't a good Jets defense like we highlighted, but he was making plays out there. Whether it was through the ground, whether it was through the air. I thought he had some nice connections with Stephon Diggs. He had a over 100-yard game receiving. Um, I do want to get your thoughts and opinions on this because if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see that Doug has a Seahawks banner behind him. If you have not already known, he is a Seahawks fan. Where do you stand with this whole Drake May MVP situation? Like, I really need to know because I'm not buying it. And I might sound like a hater, but I am not buying it for 1 second. I'll let you take off.
I think I think it's warranted. You saw his stats, today, 5 straight games with 2+ TDs. The Patriots have looked, night and day different from last year.
For sure.
He's playing well. He's not putting the it's one of my notes that I had. He just I wouldn't take away from this game as something that you're like, oh yeah, this is the performance, that really put him over the top for MVP, because I just feel like he did enough to not put him in harm's way. When Trevion's having the game that he's had, he, is just throwing, the ball to his receivers, not putting it in harm's way, playing the game that he's supposed to play. I did feel like he manipulated the pocket very well tonight. There was a play on a rollout where, he could have just dumped the ball away, was able to find a receiver. And it's not off topic, but this is one of those things, that I never like when I'm listening to the game. He dumps it all. They're like, oh, it's very, Josh Allen-y and everything. And I'm like, well, any competent quarterback should be able to roll out and catch a receiver before he
Right.
goes out of bounds or throws it out of bounds. It's not Josh Allen-y, it's not Mahomesy, it's just him being him being a good quarterback. But I do think Drake has played very well this year. I think throwing the ball down the field, he's played well. He's manipulated the pocket well. He's getting very good offensive line play. I don't have any issues with him. People wanting to say that he's in the MVP race. If you look at his numbers, he's playing just as well as any other top 5 quarterback right now. I just don't think this is one of those games where you're like, look at him, he's the MVP, because you're playing such a bad Jets defense that is so shorthanded on everything, and he didn't really have a signature play in this game where you're like, wow, look at that guy go. He just didn't put his team in harm's way. And so I don't have a bad take. I don't. If you have Drake Maye as someone that is in consideration for your MVP, I don't have a bad take on that. I think he's played very well this year. I think he's played very well when it comes to big competition, being able to step up, being able to get those signature wins on big teams that he's supposed to get.
For sure. I mean, I guess for me, it's like I look at the players that are current favorites to win the MVP, whether that's Stafford, whether that's Jonathan Taylor, whether that's Sam Darnold per se. And as good of a season as Drake May's been having, I mean, for me personally, despite this being the first team to 9 wins, they are on an 8 game winning streak right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But for me, it's like I think he's playing great. MVP level great. Me personally, I'm just not there yet, but I'm still high on Drake May. I think he's playing good football right now. I think if you're looking at that division, I think it really comes down to Buffalo and New England. And I agree with you 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be hard to listen to some of these commentators and their analysis and takeaways as the game is going. And there was one specific play that they were highlighting where Drake May rolls out to the right. You're thinking he's about to go out of bounds, and he does like a little 2 yard shovel pass. I believe it was to Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, that's the
And,
one. That's the one I'm talking about.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I was
and they
like,
were like, "Oh, it's very Josh Allen-y," and I'm like, I, I just thought that was a quarterback play. I feel like a lot of
right.
quarterbacks should be able to make that play, right?
Right. No, I'm there with you 1,000%. And again, this could be a whole other conversation. I do think that the league will have their favorites with who they'd like to prop up, to certain statuses. But that's a whole other conversation. We don't got to get into that. But
Yeah,
I think ultimately this was a good game by New England. But I do think that this speaks more negatively towards the Jets than it does to New England having a good game. This is the game that if New England lost, we're over here saying, what just
yeah,
happened? Whereas this, I think the game went as
yeah,
people expected. Justin Fields, very underwhelming. Drake May, he didn't cost his team, any place to really lose. For him to have, I believe it was, I have it right here, 25 or 34, 281, one touchdown. You pair that with, on top of that, Stephon Diggs over 100 yards, Matt Collins over 60 yards, Hunter Henry, Hunter Henry over 40 yards. I mean, he was getting the ball to everyone, which again,
Yeah.
a great game by Drake Maye. Also looking at that secondary for the Jets and saying to myself, I think most quarterbacks would have a field day against this Jets defense, which isn't good at all. But granted, hey, you you don't choose who you get to play against in this league, so give credit to where credit's due. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think the this I will say I'll shout out a couple things here. I do think that the Patriots offensive line played very well today. You seen the rookie left tackle. You seen him time and time again against Will McDonald or Mike McDonald's my coach. You saw him you saw him time and time again. Be able to push them and let Drake May be able to move in the pocket. You've seen him, get dirty at times, and I seen their offensive line just give May time and time again to make plays. I think Mac had a good game. I think time when Drake May needed a first down, he went to Hollins, and Hollins was a pretty constant being able to move the ball. And my other thing was my other note was I don't know how after you leave this game and the next couple of weeks that you go and say, okay, let's go back to splitting carries with Stevenson and Henderson. I think you have to put Henderson in that starting role and let him be your running back because not only has Stevenson had fumble issues this year, he has health issues, and I don't mind if you want to give Ramondre, somewhere between like 5 to 10 carries. Don't let Stevenson just be, tiring himself out, be the bell cow. As much as like they said that in the broadcast today, they said it, but also they contradicted themselves because they were like, oh, well, other than the big plays last year, he's been very boomer busty. So I still feel like you should run with a balanced game, but I do feel like Stevenson has been pretty much the better running back this year. And I do feel like leaving this game, you should roll with him.
no, for sure, for sure. I mean, and defensively speaking for the Patriots, I thought they had a pretty sound game. 2 sacks on the game for the New England Patriots. Christian Barmore, who I actually like. I think
Yep.
he's a underrated player. Had himself a sack today. You also pair
Mm-hmm.
that with Elijah Ponder. He had himself a sack. They play sound, and I got to give a lot of
Yeah.
credit to this defense because I believe they were without their defensive coordinator in this game. I believe it was noted that it was their linebackers coach that had stepped up as DC. And for me personally, I thought they had a pretty sound game. Whether it was getting to Justin Fields, whether it was stopping the run. Maybe not in the first quarter, it wasn't that great, but I thought throughout the game, they played fairly solid. I think that they're a very disciplined team. And I got to give a lot of credit to not just Mike Vrabel, but I got to give a lot of credit to Josh McDaniels because he has this offense humming. Like you had mentioned, the offensive line I thought looked pretty solid as well. Their left tackle, especially for a rookie in this league, it can be a pretty
Yeah.
big adjustment. And there were a lot of people that questioned whether he was going to translate well at left tackle. There were some people that believed that he should have slid inside to guard, and he's been playing fairly solid. I got to give him a lot of credit. He didn't have a good game against Cleveland,
Yeah,
granted,
you got two.
you know, but yeah. Oh, what were you saying? I didn't mean to cut
Yeah,
you
you
off.
got two rookies on the left side.
Yeah,
No, you just have two rookies on the left side. And so anytime you have two rookies out there and that's your quarterback's blind side. And anytime that you could put your rookies out there and you could trust them to keep your quarterback out of harm's way, and they show up to that, it is a good testament on, your offensive coordinator, your offensive line coach, the trust that you have in them. And yeah, I will definitely pound the table on what you said too. I feel like their defense looked very very good. I felt like that D line was definitely making Fields' life a little uncomfortable. And they even said it when Barmer got a sack. They're like, "Oh, this is his first sack, in a couple of years." And then he almost gets another one, and he
yeah.
has like another pressure. I don't know if it was more of how good is their D line or how bad is this Jets O line? Because it's something that me and you have talked about before is the picks that they've invested for New York in their offensive line, yet they still have not figured out that offensive line. Um, so it was two things as I'm watching it. I'm watching it in a sense of like, okay, they're this they are getting the best out of what they can get, even with a Milton Williams going out and missing pretty much this whole game. Chase on went out for a little bit, and they're still getting productivity. And it's one of those things where when you see a good team play a bad team like this, it's one of those things where like when you leave the game, you're like, okay, is this team that good or is this team that bad?
Yeah. No, no, you make a good point there. And I think that's the perfect transition to this, Doug. I mean, if you are the New York Jets, like, where do you go from here? I mean, because I'm not going to sit here and say that this was a demoralizing loss. I think that'd be a little dramatic, but you are 2-8, you
No.
know, and I just don't see where do you go from here, especially with the current quarterback situation? I'm not sure.
Hmm. I I think it's at one of these, like they want to go to Tyrod and then Tyrod gets banged up.
Hmm.
So they've shown that they want to kind of see what else they have, because I feel like at right now they just want to kind of evaluate what they have in house before the end of the year, before they start cleaning the house more, because you do have, they wanted to trade Brees, but they didn't get the pick they wanted. So are you going to see? Do you want to continue with Brees? Do you want to have, which I think they should? I think you should keep Mitchell. You should keep Mechie. You should keep Wilson. See what you have in this young, three. I'm not saying you don't go out and draft another wide receiver. I like Mason Taylor. They definitely have options offensively, and it sucks. When Elijah Vera Tucker gets banged up, you have some banged up offensive linemen. You want to see what that continuity has, but it's it's hard to see what you can get out of your wide receivers when you have a quarterback that can't get your wide receivers the ball.
Exactly.
So I feel like they have to try to find a way to pivot to get to a system where they can properly evaluate these players, because right now it's going to be hard to evaluate what you have in AD Mitchell and Mechie. Even though Mechie did have a couple good plays, he was wide open. He caught a touchdown today. But you're not going to consistently see what these quarterback or what these wide receivers can bring to the table when you don't have a quarterback that can get them. You want to see evaluate what you have on the defensive, because you already cleared house with your big names. You get rid of Williams, get rid of Sauce, you get rid of Carter, and they already benched Quincy Williams. So you have to. I just think right now it is just an evaluation game. They know the season is lost. They just want to see what they have before they start going full rebuild, because when you get all the picks that you get, you're letting the world know, like, hey, we have a lot of picks, and now you can either draft those players, you could use those, you can go a Rams route where you say F those picks
Yeah.
and get proven players. It is now just an evaluation game.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Like I stated earlier in this video, I mean, they are clearly in a rebuild, especially when you just look at the draft compensation perspective. What they received for Sauce. You could argue, was that an overpay by the Colts? I thought Dallas got good value in Quentin Williams. I thought that was a good trade for both teams. But ultimately, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is an evaluation period. Because I don't know if it's just the expectations that people had for Aaron Glenn coming into this year that kind of blinded the fact that even with Aaron Glenn coming into this New York Jets team, this was going to be a 2 to 3 year rebuild. I mean, I personally felt that going into this season that, even with Justin Fields coming into the lineup, like you had highlighted, right, with the offensive line, I like their offensive tackles. I think they have some good offensive tackles. That interior, though, leaves a lot to be desired, especially at the center position.
Mm.
When you go and draft Joe Tippmann, that hasn't really worked out. Elijah Vera Tucker, that hasn't worked out. So you have guys in your interior where you're saying to yourself, like you just said, you have, I believe they have like 5 first round picks in the next 2 years. So it's like, do you
Mm-hmm.
say F those picks and trade some of those picks to get some quality players? Or do you go the Detroit Lions route per se, and you know use those picks to fill your roster through the draft. And you'll have control of these players. You can develop these guys. These will be your guys per se. Um, it's going to be a tall task for this front office and for Aaron Glenn, but I do think that if there's any glimmerance of hope, is that you do have some foundational pieces to this Jets team, despite being 2-8. Um, but ultimately, this isn't a good team. This isn't a team that is going anywhere anytime soon. Even if they do draft a quarterback high next year, I could absolutely see them around this range, 2-8, maybe 4-6 potentially. I could see that at around this time next year. But as long as there's visible improvement, then I think Jets fans would feel better. As opposed to right now, it's like if you live in New York, or if anyone watching this episode has even been to New York, there are so many things to do over there, similar to Los Angeles, that if you don't want to watch the Jets or the Giants play, believe me, there are so many things that you could do with your time, and watching the Jets is not one of them. So ultimately, a very frustrating game by the New York Jets. A game that if you haven't, really paid attention at this point, I mean, we are both very down on this Jets team. Just looking at what we saw today and what we have seen all year. Doug, before we close out this video, is there any last things you want to say
Yeah,
before we head out?
I'll just say what you evaluate from this game and how you take it, especially what you were expanding on with the picks, is how you handle that is going to say how much patience do you have in this process.
Right.
Is this something where you want to keep Glenn for a couple of years and trust that he can draft these players and turn this team into a young, on the rise team? Because it's going to be hard if you have the patience for that, then you don't go the F the picks route.
Right.
You get young and you bring in these players because it's going to be really hard for you to trade those players, because what you just did is you took your core and you traded them for picks so that you can get younger and you can start fresh. You can start a rebuild. And what you're going to be able to get out there with these picks is not somebody that fits your timeline, because it's going to be a very hard sell to tell somebody like, hey, we want to trade for this player, get them to sign here, knowing that you're in a rebuild. So
Right.
I think essentially you almost locked yourself into a sense of like, we are going to do a hard rebuild. So I think this is more of a team that's going to be, more sellers at the end of the year.
Yeah.
They are going to definitely dump some players, and I think Aaron Glenn's going to want to put his fingerprints on this team and try to build this defense up the way that he wanted to, because his defense was still very much what Saleh had in place. And so I think he just kind of wants to get his fingerprints all over this team and try to create a better locker room and organization that they haven't had in a little bit. Other than that, the only thing that I would ever talk about right now is just another bad officiating game in prime time. I feel
Right.
like I'm still, like picking up flags off the field from that Denver Raiders game, and I feel like there were some really bad calls, and it's rough when they're in prime time, and you're just seeing it. It just feels like more and more times, because like I had like that necessary roughness play on the Jets DB. I understand the call because you pick up and you slam a player. But when the two refs that are closest to you do not call it and the ref on the other side of the field calls it, I'm like, okay, well, you guys got to get together and be like, hey, man, this is not a good play, or this is not a good flag. Let's get this out of here. There was just a couple, ticky tacky kind of like calls and everything, and it's just one of those things where it's like, let's get the game going. All right, let's just let these guys play. And so, but yeah, it was unfortunate. The Jets were on the side of some of those, a couple like bad calls, but even the intentional grounding. They even calls up to the rules official, and he's like, if it's like that, it shouldn't be intentional grounding. But they get it, and so it's a little stinker for the Jets that they're on the bad side of that. Um, but it's just one of those games, that you watch a, a stinker team and bad officiating. It gets real hard to watch in prime time.
Absolutely, and I feel like this is the theme of the episode. I absolutely agree with you. The officiating, not just in this game, but just all throughout this year, throughout the entire league, has just been abysmal. It's been inconsistent, and it really is frustrating when you have games like today. You have games like the Denver and Raiders game, where it's just like some of these calls, you're like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Are we seeing the same thing? Because there's no way that you're calling a flag here, or the opposite. There's no way that you're not calling a flag here and it doesn't get called. So it's very frustrating. I think the league
Yeah.
has an officiating problem. I think that's no secret. Um, but ultimately, I'll be honest with you, Doug. Even if the flags went in their way, I don't think it would have helped this Jets team at all.
No,
It would
no,
not
I
have.
don't. I don't think so. I don't think so. They were just on the wrong side of the flags this game, which doesn't help them.
Yeah,
Who knows? When because you see, when you get, it's very when you're a team that really relies on not getting behind the sticks, and you get like an intentional grounding call, and you're already backed up that much, you're gonna just scrap that drive.
yeah,
That's just not gonna happen for you. So no, it didn't help them. But I still don't think you know that they scrape away with the win, but at least they made it somewhat competitive. Had Bills not
yeah,
taken a sack at the end, who knows? Maybe this game got a little bit closer. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone thought that the Jets were going to come in here and pull off some miracle. But you would at least like them to be competitive.
for sure, absolutely. Let alone competent. So I mean, I'm there with you a
Yeah.
1000%. But let us know your thoughts below. How did you guys feel about this Jets and Patriots game? What were some of your takeaways from it? You heard our thoughts. We want to hear yours. Again, if you have not already, if you've made it this far, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment below. You can find us on all social media platforms under the Whistleblown Podcast. I'll also leave my personal Twitter as well as Douglas's as well in the description box too. So definitely go give us a follow there, and we'll see you guys on the next video.